Well, things are looking bleak for the 2024 St. Louis Cardinals, and I think it's officially time that we have a conversation about is a retool or a rebuild coming for this team, and if so, what does life after John Mozeliak look like if that's going to happen? What does a potential trade deadline look like? And is this a retool or a rebuild? What does the future of the St. Louis Cardinals look like if they come into consecutive terrible seasons? We'll talk about all this and more on this episode of Dealing the Cards. So again, I think it's at least I don't blame people, and I'm almost probably I would lean toward the direction of this season's going to be a failure. I think there's just too much leading toward that right now, but it's still May 9th, right? Like there's still time, even though it's highly unlikely at this point to turn things around. But I think this is where we have to start having real conversations about what does this season look like, and then really what does 2025 and beyond look like if the Cardinals have to mail it in again. And so I want to start off with three of us kind of answering this question. And Sandy, you can go first on this one. If the Cardinals have to mail it in and they sell, it's not going to be a sell like briefly and just get rid of the. At least, okay, I won't put words in your mouth. It feels like this is going to be different than last year's deadline. It feels like they're going to be heading toward a true retool or rebuild. So I want to know, Sandy, do you think this is a retool where they 2016 New York Yankees style, they sell off some different assets that they know can't help them in the immediate future to get some prospects and revamp the team? So they're not necessarily looking to compete in 2025, but they're also not looking to full scale tear it all down, and they'll be more of a contender in 2026 range. Or do you think this is a full scale rebuild where they're tearing it to the studs, they're tanking, bringing in all the prospects that they can, and this is a 5-ish or more year rebuild? What do you think, Sandy?
I certainly don't think it's a full rebuild. I think the farm system is too talented for that. I think the Cardinals still have it's not like we're talking about the Houston Astros who have 0 top 100 prospects. And I think that's something we need to keep in mind. The Cardinals still have a good farm system, right? Like
Yeah.
you still have a guy like Tink Hence who's going to be up hopefully next year. Thomas Sajazi is an immensely talented hitter. Takoa Roby, Gordon Graceffo, these guys are good pitchers, and a couple of them are going to pan out. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a full rebuild, but I think you're right. I think we're looking at something that could really hurt the Cardinals for next year. I think there's a chance that a guy like Nolan Arenado leaves at this deadline. I think there's a chance they move on from, especially the short-term pitchers. The hard thing for me, though, is it becomes a full rebuild if people are all of a sudden interested in trading the young bats away. I just don't know how the Cardinals see them right now. That's the hard thing for me. If the Cardinals are no longer interested in the potential of Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, because they've been so bad this year, then we're talking about something that's a long-term rebuild because they don't have the prospects to replace those guys in the minors right now. Or they do, but they're far away, like Chase Davis. But if the Cardinals continue to believe in them, they think they have potential, then it's a retool. And that's what we need it to be because like you've said this whole time, they're kind of stuck with what they have offensively right now. And that's not just in the near term, that's in the long term.
Yeah. Andrew, what are you thinking on that?
Yeah, I feel like it does depend on what we think of Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar. I feel like their chances to move on from those guys at with a good return has kind of passed already. Because like last year, the A's offered what was it, Sean Murphy for Nolan Gorman and Lars Nootbaar. Brendan Donovan was in that conversation. I think the Mariners wanted Nolan Gorman for like Logan Gilbert or something. That was talked about at some point, and that would have been great, right? Logan Gilbert is pitching like a Cy Young caliber pitcher, and Nolan Gorman has been terrible. So
I don't know if that one was actually a deal that could have happened. I think that was more of like a hypothetical, but
right.
I think it would have been like Bryce Miller or Brian Wu for like Nolan Gorman.
Okay.
To be fair.
I mean, still, that looks a lot more enticing now than it did like in the offseason. But
sure,
I don't think there's really much of a shot that they do that. It's been a month, and I said last time that those guys are still relatively unproven. They've had good seasons. They've shown that they can do it, but they haven't shown that they can do it consistently over like a stretch. Like Nolan Gorman got extremely cold last June. Lars Nootbaar has had a lot of injury concerns. Brendan Donovan was great in 2022. Great the start of 2023, and he got hurt. And that injury, who knows how it's affecting him right now. So we'll see. But I think there's a lot of young talent, too much young talent on this team on the offensive standpoint to just let it all go away, right? Like Jordan Walker hasn't been amazing at the major league level, but he is one of the most talented prospects in all of baseball. And that doesn't always work out, but you build around guys like that. And you've already started his clock. He's like, if you do a 5-year rebuild, he's not going to be part of that plan, right? Unless you extend him.
Wow.
So I think you reset next year, maybe cut the payroll, let some of the young guys develop with less pressure. And I looked up and down the lineup, and honestly, I could see this lineup making a playoff run if you put the pitching together, if the pitching works out. The young lineup that we could potentially have, if there's no pressure on them, if you just like say, hey, maybe we'll finish in 4th place this year, maybe we'll make a wild card spot, but like nothing much other than like, hey, let's just see how this goes. You could end up having like an Orioles, Mariners, Reds type run with all this young talent and see what happens, right? The Diamondbacks last year were a pretty young team with no expectations, and they made it all the way to the World Series. So we just see what happens.
Yeah, I definitely lean toward Retool for a multitude of reasons. One, and this is like really big picture, I don't think if you're asking for a full-scale rebuild, I don't think you understand what a full-scale rebuild really looks like, and I don't think the city can handle it. And they don't always work. I mean, you'd think about, I mean, yeah, look at the White Sox. Look, I mean, you can have it kind of work, but it'd be super disappointing where you end up like the Blue Jays, where they have this young core come up and it's really exciting, but then they have 0 playoff wins. They're basically the equivalent of the Cardinals in the American League. And now they're at a point where like, do we sell Vlad Guerrero and Bo Bichette and blow it up and go all over again? Sometimes you're the Baltimore Orioles, sometimes you're the Houston Astros, sometimes you're the Chicago Cubs, and sometimes you're the Royals, and sometimes you're
the White Sox.
Yeah, sometimes your teams that like your 5-year rebuild turns into, okay, now it's 5-year rebuild, that 5-year rebuild, then it's 5-year rebuild, that 5-year rebuild, then it's 15 to 20 years. The Phillies went like a decade without making the playoffs after their sustained success. I know they look great right now, but is that worth 10 years of losing? Yeah, I don't really know.
The reason the Phillies are really good right now is not because their rebuild was super successful. They just brought in good talent. Like I feel like you look at that team, it's all imported talent. Okay, like Alec Boehm, Bryson Stott, those guys were prospects, but come on, like that's not the driving factor behind their success.
Yeah, so I don't think you go into a full-scale rebuild, but I think you do a retool, and I think there's levels of a retool that we could talk about too. Like, is it just the expiring assets of Goldschmidt, Lynn, Gibson, Kittredge? Do you take advantage of the trade value of a Ryan Helsley with 1.5 years of control as an elite closer? That's going to get you a lot on the market. And part of this, you're probably not within your control. If Nolan Arenado wants out, then you probably have to give him an out. But do you explore? And I think both sides probably come to a conclusion that it's best to move on. We can talk more about that too. There's just a lot of different things that a retool could look like. To Andrew's point too, and we'll talk more deeper about what the future of this team would look like. I think, and Sandy, you made this too. There's too many young players on this team that I like. Outside of even the farm system, again, Jordan Walker has part of a year of service time, so he's still got 5.5, if not 6 years of control left. You still have Brendan Donovan and Lars Nootbaar just hitting their first year of arbitration. Nolan Gorman's still a year away from arbitration. I mean, I know that's like, even if your retool takes 4 years, you can extend some of those guys. You don't come together with a bunch of guys who are 22 years old that are all pre-ARB when you get to contention. You need layers of guys. You need some guys on ARB. You need some guys on their first contract. You need some guys who are coming up. And so you also have the number 7 overall pick in this draft, and it's a pretty top-heavy draft where at number 7, you're going to get someone, whether it's a Hagen Smith, Jack, I can never say his last name, from Florida, the two-way guy. Andrew's shaking his head. Caglione. Even like a JJ Weathercole or whatever from Virginia, who's like he was supposed to be a top 3 guy, and he's falling because of injury. Like Burns, there's a lot of talent there. Kurtz. So like you can immediately get a top, probably at least a top 100 prospect in baseball in this draft with that first pick. Again, if you're going to be bad, you're going to have another top pick next year, and you're probably not going to sign someone like Sonny Gray. So you're going to have your second round pick at the top of the round. You've got this other young talent coming, and then you're going to bring in talent from trades again. Yeah, I think you can see the path for this not taking a terribly long. And then also, again, it depends. Are you trying to, like, I think part of the reason you full scale tear it down is that the risk reward is the high risk of you suck for like a decade straight and it doesn't work, or the high reward of, oh my gosh, we hit on like 15 different top 100 prospects and now we're set to be a juggernaut. I don't think the Cardinals can afford to go in that route. And because they're an organization that can spend money too, I think they can put themselves in a position where they're a really young, intriguing team, and then they go out and make trades. or sign some free agents. We can talk more about the payroll later too. It'll get significantly lowered if they end up going into a retool rebuild. So right now it's been hard to imagine them going out and making bigger-ish moves around the edges, even though they did do Sonny Gray, Wilson Contreras. But I could see them going out and getting, I don't even want to say names, but like a true frontline starter or a true bat in the middle of the order, because they have all this money to spend that they usually don't have, because they have all these young players and they're not paying $35 million to Nolan Arenado right now. That's a lot of money. They're paying mid 20 millions to Paul Goldschmidt. They're going to be paying $35 million to Sonny Gray in 3 years. Like, they're not afraid of that big number, but they're not going to have 5 of those big numbers on their books. So there's stuff like that. I do think it's important for us to talk about, because there's going to be people who worry about this, and I think it will make a difference for people's confidence in a rebuild. Is there any chance, Andrew, is there any chance that John Mozeliak is a part of this retool rebuild, or do you think it's a given that he would be? I don't think he's going to be fired, but do you think it's a given that he would step down and move into a different role, or do you think there's a chance? Do you think there's a chance he sticks with this for next year, but the bigger question is, should he?
I don't think he should. I don't know if he would, because just based on his personality, the way he comes across in interviews, I feel like he's too proud of a person to just admit that he was like he's not the right one to do this. But it is the right thing for him to do. We saw in a recent poll of executives from The Athletic that he's not really considered a top exec anymore. There's other guys that have surpassed him, and the Cardinal way is kind of becoming a little bit more antiquated. It's just not something that can really be sustainable in this day of baseball, and that sucks. But we need to move on to somebody, preferably an outside voice like Chaim Bloom, but like even just Randy Flores, anybody else inside the organization, just to have a different voice to lead us through this next phase of Cardinal baseball, because he is planning to step down after next year anyway, I believe. So I don't think it really makes sense. It doesn't really make sense for me to have him stick through like the first year of this and then to just leave after that. That doesn't sound right. I hope that he steps down, but I also can see a world where he gives a press conference. At least they would have a press conference right at the end of the season, but like he would give a press conference and be like, hey, I really want to be here and like fix this team or something, and classic Mo fashion, not answer any questions, and just, it's just how it is.
It'd be very Mo for say, hey, I wanted to be here, so I resigned. Yeah. That's the motto. We wanted to be here. I'll jump in. I actually think Mo would recognize, and I think he does recognize, that if this goes poorly, he has to change roles. Like, I don't think the DeWitts would ever fire him. I just don't think that's going to happen. But I do think both sides would kind of agree and see the writing on the wall. Mo said it publicly, and he said it privately, not privately as in like one-on-one, but like in like private circles or like more condensed settings with reporters, that he recognizes that he's been in his role for almost 20 years. I think he said at winter warm-up this year that he's like, I understand that my voice, like at some point, even if you're good at your job, there just kind of has to be some change or things grow stale. And so he's recognized that I've heard him say that as early as 3 or 4 years ago. And he's even said it when he signed this last contract, that he's like, I think my time is coming up. And so I don't think, from a baseball mind, and he said he doesn't like care about his legacy that much, but like people care about what people think about them. Like, even if it's just a little bit, I don't think Mo wants to destroy what was, at least for the first, from 2008 when he took over to 2015, a really good run as an executive. I don't think he wants to tarnish that by how it's ended. I would be carrying Mo's water if I said the last few years have been good. There's been systemic issues that have derailed them, and someone else needs to come in and be the voice to fix it. It would be really weird for him to make these franchise altering decisions, and then 1 year, with knowing 1 year later he's going to be gone anyways. So whether it's a Chaim Bloom, which I think makes too much sense as the next guy, and we can talk about that. There's so many parallels to what Boston's ownership wanted him to do and what he would have to do here in St. Louis. I think he would be a perfect fit for that. I'm actually of the opinion now, I know people like Randy Flores and Michael Gersh. I'm not saying anything negative against them, but it would be really hard to sell a fan base that things are going to be different when a disciple of Mo or of like Randy Flores and Michael Gersh are the next president of baseball operations. I think you got to change it. So I think it's way more likely than not that in August, September, October, you see Mo step down or step into like a backwards role, like a behind the scenes role to like finish out his contract and Chaim Bloom step into it. Sandy, what do you think about that?
Yeah, Bloom's got to be the guy. I feel like the things that have been good about this team, people are already trying to link to Chaim Bloom. They're like, oh, this bullpen is really exciting. Chaim
Yeah.
Bloom. He's got to be the guy. He's forward thinking. He feels like someone that would be a really good next executive. I mean, it's bittersweet to see Mozeliak's career end like this, right? You know me, I'm a Mozeliak fan.
I got to hit the button. This is great.
It's really it's tough to see this end because I don't know. I think all three of us looked at the Cardinals this year and we're like, this is a good team. And I mean, it's still up for debate whether it's roster construction or player performance that's been so terrible this year. I think it's player performance. So I don't know.
Yeah.
This whole discussion, like the Cardinals could change everything by going on a 5-game win streak.
For sure.
And all of a sudden, like, we might as well just erase this episode. But so far, they just haven't shown us that they have that ability. So I don't know. I think you guys are probably right. If they do go into some sort of retool rebuild, Mozeliak's probably gone. I think you're right that he would step down. He cares about his legacy. He's already tarnished it enough. And I think that Cardinals fans right now are mad at him and they're angrier at him than they should be. And I think 5 years down the line, especially if the Cardinals win again after he leaves, if Chaim Bloom comes in, we maybe have one middling season next year and then start winning again in 2026. I think that at that point you would have fans saying, okay, you know, Mozeliak was good. Like, we had a lot of good years under him.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And I think too, like, if this is going to be a successful retool, it's going to be using some of Mo's players too. Like, it's not like Jordan Walker, Lars Nootbaar, Nolan Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Tim Kent's. Like, there's going to be talent that was from the Mozeliak years. And if people want to give Walt Jocketty credit for the 2011 Cardinals being good, then people would have to give Mo credit for this retool working out to an extent, because not that like Mozeliak should be the one who gets the credit for that 2011 team, but you can say, hey, Walt Jocketty helped with some of this. Mo help with some of this, even if he's part of the reason it needed to be a retool in the first place. So I think it's fair for both things to be true. I've seen some comments in here, and I think it's a given that if Mo is changed, that there would be coaching, and there, like, at least from a support coaching standpoint, I don't know if it's a given that Ollie Marmol's gone, but I think it becomes way more likely. And then definitely player development too, like Gary LaCroix, I can't remember how to say his last name right now, head of player development, is a Mo. Like, him and Mo have been attached to it for a long time. I doubt he's still around. If Chaim Bloom's taking over, he's going to want to revamp it and shape it all into his own image. And I think something that's really interesting from Bill DeWitt this at winter warmup is that someone asked him about, hey, what's life after Mo look like? You brought in Chaim Bloom. And DeWitt kind of went on this tangent about how he's like, yeah, I read the paper, which was kind of funny. It's like, who reads the paper anymore? But like, at least like regularly. He said he's like, I saw the news that Chaim Bloom was let go, and he goes, I thought to myself, we should call him. Like, we should think about this. And so he said a few days later, him and Mo were talking, and he brought it up to Mo, and Mo goes, hey, I've actually been thinking about that too. And so the two of them were like, hey, Bloom would be a really good fit to bring in here to give an outside perspective. But I think it makes, like, for DeWitt's gears to be turning and be like, hey, this could be a guy. I don't think he's just going to insert him in and be like, do everything with the structures we already have. They, like, to DeWitt's credit, I don't like that they're anti-spending big, but they have been they've lagged behind, which is kind of frustrating, but they've talked about how if they're going to be this kind of mid, like 10th, 11th, 12th payroll team, they have to nail player development. They have to nail scouting. They have to be the best in baseball at developing young talent, because that's the only way to sustain a structure like this. And they were doing that in the early 2010s, right? They were pumping out pitching all the time. They were pumping out the Matt Carpenters of the world that would come up and be like, oh, this guy's awesome. Where did that come from? They have to get back to that. And so I think he seems Chaim Bloom as the kind of guy who can integrate that. Now, I say that at the same time, and this is an organization that still won't build a pitching lab. And this is an organization that still refuses to let some of the prominent analytics systems into their organization that many of the other organizations in baseball are using. It doesn't mean they're not doing some of it, but they're not the cutting edge anymore. They're playing catch up. And the best way to play catch up and the best way to get back ahead of the times is to bring in someone like Chaim Bloom. So I think DeWitt would see that, recognize that, and giving a 2-ish year retool time would give them time to revamp all those structures while they're building up their young talent, and then go after the player side of things when they've revamped their ability to do player development, all that kind of stuff. So yes, I know for a fact, I was talking to someone from True Media the other day that the Cardinals do not use True Media, which is like one of the leading analytics things. And
Crazy.
so hopefully that'll change at some point. They might have another system, who knows? But yeah, they've been anti some of that stuff. Which
one
is
quick question, really quickly.
Yeah.
Before we leave the Mozeliak kind of debate, so like we've kind of alluded to their like structural problems with the organization.
Yeah.
What to you are the structural problems? So we can just name those real quick, because I think the biggest problem with the organization under Mozeliak in the last 5 years is an inability to develop young pitching. Right?
Yeah, that's by far the biggest issue.
They've gotten desperate, so they've had to do other things. The Cardinals are one of the only teams in all of baseball that currently don't have someone in their rotation on a rookie contract.
Yep.
But he's being paid like a free agent. So now you have this team that's made up of guys getting paid $10 million to $15 to $20 million. And so your rotation is one of the most expensive in the league, yet one of the least talented.
1,000%.
At the Cardinals, right? But I think that's changing. Like the Cardinals' young pitching this year is awesome in the minor leagues. Go look at Springfield. Like Springfield's 18-9 right now. They have 5 young starters who like people agree, wow, that guy could go to, go play in the MLB someday. They have 5 guys that look like that coming through the rotation every single night. All the way up and down the minors. Even AAA has been really good with Robersa breaking out, McGreevy sustaining some success from last year. So it's gotten a lot better. Besides that, like, is there a problem with offense? There hasn't been until right now, but I don't think we can call that like a systemic issue yet.
Yeah, I would say I'm getting a little bit worried. I just posted something on RR this morning about Jeff Albert and his departure from the organization, and like far and away the best outcome in baseball. Like the Cardinals ranked 24th. I'll pull it up, like 24th in baseball in pulled fly ball slugging percentage one year, and they still had like a 1,300 slug on it because almost every time you pull a fly ball, good things happen. And they used to lead the league in pulled fly balls, which means even if they didn't have the talent they didn't even have like a bunch of power hitters. All of their hitters are hitting so many pulled fly balls that it was helping their offense a ton. Now they're dead last in all baseball. And they've been regressing. And I had this quote from Ben Frederickson I found that basically Turner Ward and Jeff Albert were like not speaking the same language. And so I think it's really interesting that Jeff Albert leaves, Turner Ward takes over, and this happens. So I'm not saying it's all Turner Ward's problem. There's a lot of different issues. Yeah, I don't get it.
It's actually absurd at this point, right? Like, can I just say it is crazy that the Cardinals, a team that probably has like a top 7 or 8 talent offense, is dead last in baseball in a ton of offensive categories. We are 35 games in. This is real, and it's ruining the season. And Turner Ward is still here. I don't understand.
Yeah. So 2021 was the first year they ranked first in pulled fly balls, and they had a 1,600 slugging percentage on pulled fly balls, and that was 27th in baseball. It's because when you pull a fly ball, good things happen. They're middle of the pack in offense, most of the statistic categories that year. 2022, they pulled even more fly balls and ranked first again. They were 23rd in slugging percentage on pulled fly balls, which again, the point of that is just saying, like, even if you rank poorly in how your pulled fly ball outcomes come, it's still the best outcome. So still do it. And then they ranked 5th in OPS in 2022 and 5th in runs scored. So again, some of that's Albert Pujols was there, but if you want to say, hey, Albert was there, well, guess what? You also had regression from Tyler O'Neill that year. You had the worst offensive catchers in baseball with Yadier Molina, Andrew Kisner. You had Paul DeJong playing a lot. You had a bunch of black holes in the lineup on top of the good guys in the lineup. So like the Cardinals have constructed their team where maybe they don't have 3 bats that are that good anymore, but they have 9 bats that should be a lot. Again, that's what it was supposed to be going into this year. It hasn't been that way. But actually, like as a philosophy, as a team, if we can show that pulling as many fly balls as possible is the best possible outcome, and you have 9 guys in the lineup who are talented and can do that, it makes like you could see how a good lineup comes out of that. But then, yeah, Jeff Albert leaves, and we'll never know what would happen if he'd stayed. So I do think, but to your point, Sandy, the biggest thing that's derailed them the last few years, actually, it's really an issue from 5 or 6 years ago that's just rearing its ugly head now. And that's the issue of player development, is that you fix it now, it doesn't have real ramifications till 4 years from now. So it looks like they've maybe made some fixes with pitching development, but I mean, the people who are in the know still think it's not great. So I think there's issues there. Chaim Bloom's made some changes even this past offseason, little ones that I feel like have made a difference. But yeah, I mean, like the 2 last arms I can really think of that had a significant rotation role that were developed were Jack Flaherty for a little while and Dakota Hudson. And it's like, but even if you can develop like a little bit better of a Dakota Hudson, then you don't have to pay $15 million a year for a number 5 starter. You have them on the league minimum, and you can have a bunch of guys like that. And when one or two guys gets hurt, you have a guy who's capable of stepping into the rotation. You've seen since 2020, every time they have an injury, they have to throw in some guy from AA or AAA who's not ready, kind of scrape by till the trade deadline, and then they go and trade for Jose Quintana or trade for J.A. Happ or Wade LeBlanc or whatever it is. It's been a major issue for a long time. It completely derailed them last year. They fixed it for this year, and now the offense has gone cold. So I think there's just a lot of issues there. Andrew, I don't know is there any systemic things you would name outside of that?
Yeah, no, the pitching development has been terrible. I feel like it's led to most of the problems, right? We bring in all these starters who aren't great, like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. We could spend that money on other like top end talent. Like you have, if like, for example, Matthew Liberatore panned out and you don't need to bring in Lynn and Gibson, right? Let's say Matthew Liberatore pans out and Dakota Hudson isn't awful. You basically have Lynn and Gibson right there.
Yeah.
Then you can go spend that, like however much you spent on them, and plus some other salary that you could dump elsewhere, like you could dump Mats, and you could go out and you could have signed Jordan Montgomery, or you could have given Yamamoto an offer this offseason. And like there's just, you could go out and get that top end starting talent because you have the resources to do that. You're not backfilling innings because you just don't have them, right? So I think that's really important. Because teams like the Dodgers, they will run a lot higher payroll, but they have guys like Bobby Miller in the back end of their rotation who will fill some innings for you. And you can go out and sign, you can go out and trade for Glass now. You can extend him. You can go out and get wants instead of needs, right? This whole offseason, we were filling needs because we needed starting pitching. And that's why I don't really fault Mo for what we've done. And you can go and press the button again if you want. But like he did a fine job given what he was playing with, and it's on the pitching development. It's on like, I mean, Mo also had a hand in the pitching development, but like
exactly, I think that's where you have to play both sides of it.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think Chaim Bloom does, but like look at the Red Sox pitching. Like he's not there anymore, but look at it right now. Like those guys are not names that you would have thought about like a couple years ago. Like we talked to Red Sox, like we talked to Robbie Hyde, who's a big Red Sox fan, and he was adamant that the Red Sox needed more pitching. And right now their rotation looks like one of the best in all of baseball, and it's with names that you wouldn't expect. And those are guys that Chaim Bloom brought in, right?
It's behind Bloom. And I think like to your point, Andrew, like the Cardinals are never going to be the Dodgers. Like we can't totally say like, hey, but the reason the Dodgers are so stinking good is that they've absolutely completely figured out the player development model, at least the best you can, because you're never going to get completely right, but they're the best in baseball at it, and they spend the money, and they're also in an awesome market. So they have everything working for them. But if you do it really well, the Tampa Bay Rays are the epitome, or like the exact opposite end of the spectrum, where they can't spend any money. It's not really a place people want to go, but they have the player development that's so good that they keep contending. St. Louis is in a happy medium where they're never going to be able to be a juggernaut with a $300 million payroll, but they don't have to be the Rays either. They can be a consistent contender every year. That can actually, and contender as in World Series contender, but like at this, they'll have to overcome the team with the huge payroll at the same time. But to your point also, Andrew, if you have a Bobby Miller and you have a I don't know, I'm trying to think of like a lesser arm than Bobby Miller, so we're not just naming out top one, like top young arms in baseball. But if you have a couple of young arms that are really valuable, if you can develop a Bobby Miller and a Gavin Stone, then you can go out and get Tyler Glass now, because you can spend the money and risk it. Right now, they can't do that, because if they'd spent all their, even though I think they could have, if they'd spent all their money in Glasnow and not Lynn and Gibson, and then Glasnow gets hurt, now your rotation is Gray, Michaelis, Matz, Liberatore, and Thompson. Like, it would have fallen apart already. So,
I mean, you already risked all of it on Gray, and Gray got hurt at the beginning. The rotation somehow was fine, but like, I don't know. It was,
yeah, I mean, you risked that one arm, but they needed three. But so I think Mo made good moves this offseason, but they were good moves to fix problems that he created. So it's kind of like an oxymoron of like, hey, good job for cleaning up the mess you made, kind of, but it's so big of a mess that it's still not fully fixed. So there's a lot that goes there. So I think people want to know, people want to talk about, what does an actual retool rebuild look like? Maybe another time we can talk about what it would look like to fully rebuild, but I just don't think that makes sense yet.
No.
Retool, obviously a big name that would be on the move is Paul Goldschmidt. The problem is, what on earth do you get for Paul Goldschmidt right now? Because he
Cash
is
considerations.
cash.
No, you
Considerations
get
later. I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'll lead a little bit. Like, I think you still get something for Paul Goldschmidt because people are gonna like. There's usually not a lot of big bats available in the trade market. There's gonna be some contender that's like, hey, half a season of Paul Goldschmidt, maybe he figures it out for us.
We already know. Yeah, he's gonna go somewhere and slug 800.
Yeah, based on that's what they should be. Is like, hey, look at all these former Cardinals performing. Maybe
that's how you advertise.
Yeah, that's what Mo should do. He's like, hey, anytime you acquire one of my guys, they go off. So why wouldn't you want them? But
trade Goldschmidt back to Arizona. Trade Arenado back to the Rockies.
Yeah, I don't think he's going back to the Rockies.
I love.
But let's go to Arenado in a little bit. But Paul Goldschmidt, I think we agree he's tradable. It's just like what the value is probably not there anymore.
Right.
But like, I mean, what else is there to trade? Sandy, what are the other pieces you're looking at here?
Well, I mean, I would try very, very hard to salary dump Michaelis if it's possible.
I don't know if that's possible. I think he's one like if you're retooling, you can hold on to.
What if you traded Miles Michaelis to the Angels for Rendon? But the Angels,
how?
The Angels.
Why would I want that?
And you move Arenado too. now we're pushing. I like that.
No.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know how you move Miles Michaelis, but like I just kind of want him gone. I'm kind of tired of it right now.
Yeah,
unplayable. I mean, Gibson and Lynn obviously are moving, and I think they actually care. I think Gibson right now carries a lot of value.
I think they both do. Yeah,
Gibson doesn't carry as much value as Jordan Montgomery from last year, even though thus far he's been every bit as good as Montgomery was last year to this point. Like Gibson's stats, like we've said all year, are kind of skewed by like one or two bad innings. But dude, Gibson's pumping out quality starts every time he's on the mound. We just don't. So I don't know. I think they carry some value. Hopefully you could get back a top 100 prospect for Gibson. Maybe not. Maybe.
I mean, I think he'd have to put this up all the way through July and probably even have a little bit better of a stretch to get that. Just because he also probably doesn't have the stuff to convince someone that like his FIP is really high right now, and players can outperform their FIP, so he's still a valuable starter. But I don't think someone's going to. Yeah, but I don't think a top 100 prospect, but I think you get something valuable. And then, I mean, again, if he continues this all the way through July, part of my point when I put out some stuff with people they could trade the other day is like, in today's day and age, there's not a lot of sellers. Like most teams are trying to stay in it to an extent because the wild card is possible. So there's not as many players available as there typically has been in past off seasons. So like, if Kyle Gibson's available, he's probably not the best starter available, but he's probably one of the top 5, if not top 10. And every single contender is going to want to add another starting pitcher. So him and Lynn, I think both carry better value, worse value than Jordan Montgomery, but better value than what Jack Flaherty had.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Flaherty got interesting enough pieces. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Like Showalter's interesting long term.
Or even like Jordan Hicks package is probably something you could look at. Like maybe you can get a Sam Robersa type for Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn, who knows. And I mean also so you've got those two. You got Andrew Kittredge, which again like
trade Kittredge.
Yeah, but I mean he's expiring contract, so like you would move on from
unless you could extend him.
Trade him for Palacios.
Palacios, jeez. I don't know if you extend because he's like mid-30s. So I mean, which is how volatile relievers are. I would probably move him and you'd probably get something significant.
We finally figure out our bullpen, and it doesn't matter.
I know, but that is really helpful for a trade deadline. Like if you're a team that's in a rebuild, you should be throwing these small contracts, all these relievers, hoping one hits, like the Royals did last year.
Yeah,
and they flipped him for Cole Reagans. I mean, they flipped Jordan Hicks last year into Sam Robersa. Like you can flip Andrew Kittredge into something significant.
Oh yeah, you'll get something really good for him. He might be the best reliever available too.
Unless. Now let's talk a little bit about non-expiring guys.
No.
Unless Ryan Helsley is put on the table.
I'm not doing it.
Why not?
Because I think the Cardinals can be good next year. And I think moving on from Ryan Helsley is totally a step backwards.
Yeah.
Get rid of Ryan Helsley. Like, when's the last time the Cardinals developed a multi-year closer? The Cardinals have had like a bunch of one-off closers that have been really good. Like Bud Norris had a really good year. Jordan Hicks had a really good year as the closer. Alex Reyes.
It's probably Trevor Rosenthal, honestly.
It's probably Rosenthal, and Helsley's a lot better, in my opinion. I love Trevor Rosenthal. Rosie, we love you. But
Come back.
Helsley's a lot better than Trevor Rosenthal was for the Cardinals. I think Helsley might be like one of the top 5, like at least best closers the Cardinals.
He's definitely top 5
ever, all time.
Okay, so here's counter though. Ryan Helsley, 2 years of control left. So this year, next year, he turns 30 in July, and we know relievers at any moment it could be the time when things turn around.
I know.
So like I agree they could be pretty good in 2025, but in my eyes, in a retool, and again, we can disagree on this. We don't have to all have the same opinion with that. In 2025, you're probably hoping to be like sneaky good, where it's like, hey, we surprised. We're not aiming to be 86, 87 wins, but hey, that's in the range of outcomes. We're probably more of a low 80s, high 70s win team in this retool year. If that's where you're at, I don't think you hold on to an elite closer. I think that's a luxury you have as a team that you know you're a contender. If you extend him, maybe it's a little bit of a different story. But again, he's entering his 30s. So like imagine the return you can get for Ryan Helsley right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cubs, again, they overpaid because they're trying to win a World Series, but they gave up the 25th best prospect in all of baseball for half a year of Aldis Chapman.
And they almost lost because of that.
That's true. You could get at least one, if not two. Like you probably get a top 50 prospect for Ryan Helsley and maybe another top 100 prospect for him.
Depends on what the return is. If Ryan Helsley gets traded, I better be blown away by the return.
Yeah, and the Josh Hader package was super underwhelming, but he was also really bad that year. So I think that's part of the reason why he ended up not getting so much in the market.
The best reliever in baseball this year by every expected metric.
Yeah.
Mason Miller has a negative FIP, so I disagree.
Okay, fine. Mason Miller is this like random, insane special player, and he's not Helsley. But everywhere else, Helsley's like 98th or 100th percentile expected ERA, expected batting average, expected weighted on base average. Like he is really good. He is the best closer outside of Mason Miller on the planet.
The only way I would keep Ryan Helsley personally is if they try to do the Jordan Hicks experiment with him and they try to make him a starting pitcher. That's the only way.
Starter before?
He was pretty good in the minor leagues as a starter. That's the only way I do it, and I don't think they would. And it's probably not. I think it might not work out. But like even if it doesn't work out, like what's stopping him from being a closer again? That's really.
Do you think Chaim Bloom would try it?
I would hope. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And if you can extend him to like what the Jordan Hicks contract just was, or even a little bit more, then it's like, hey, we try him as a starter. If he works out, and even if he's just middle of the rotation, that's a great contract for a middle of the rotation starter with great stuff. If he ends up being an elite starter, you just got to bargain on a guy. And if it doesn't work out, you just paid a closer who's really good. You could probably still move him. So I would totally go that route. I get creative here with him, unless someone's offering me like the moon for him right now, then I don't think it's worth the risk. So I threw that out to Brendan Schaefer, and he said he doesn't think Jordan Hicks had a burning passion within him to start again, but I don't think Ryan Helsley would say no, because I mean everyone knows if you're a good starting pitcher, you can get a bag. Like I think he would be down to try it.
But he could be like a top, like even if he's like a top 50 starting pitcher, it's a lot more valuable, I think, to be like a top 5 closer in the league.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it just depends a little bit. So, I mean, we saw Edwin Diaz. So,
like relievers have never been paid like they're being paid right now.
Right.
Yeah,
because Edwin Diaz and Josh Hader kind of changed the game.
Totally. So, I mean, I don't know if he would. If again, this is a lot of hypotheticals. That's where we're living in the world here. Yeah, hypothetical. If Ryan Helsley's open to the idea of trying to be a starting pitcher, I would have to be completely blown away to move him. If he's not, then I'm shopping him, and I'm not going to trade him for like cents on the dollar. I want my full value for him, but I think they could easily get that because they're not going to trade him to the Cubs, but like the Cubs right now, if they just had a decent bullpen, they would be. I mean, their rotation has been so good so far. Lineup thinks overperforming, but I can't think of all the contenders right now that have struggling bullpens, but there are teams out there who would really want Ryan Helsley to lock it down.
Well, yeah, every team gets better by putting Ryan Helsley in the 9th inning because now your closer is your 8th inning guy because Ryan Helsley is better than your closer unless you're the Oakland A's.
True. And the Oakland A's
are not buying anybody, yeah.
Which I don't think so.
Mason Miller, one of the most valuable trade chips in the entire world right now.
He's a guy he came up as a starter.
He's going to be a starter again.
But he'll be a starter again. Yeah. So that's why I'm like Ryan Helsley can become a starter. Let's see. So
so cool. Please, Ryan.
That'd be so fun. So we'll see. I mean, it's not like and also he wouldn't be pumping out 103 every time. He would like you've seen what Ryan Helsley or what Jordan Hicks has done. He's lowered his velocity and his sinker and fastball a little bit. He's added a splitter to his game. Like there would be some, it wouldn't just be as simple as stretch him out. Like they'd have to make some changes. So it's risky, but I think it'd be worth it. Worth trying at least. So, okay. So the big chip though, that we really have to talk about, Nolan Arenado, and not big chip necessarily in terms of, I think you get more for Ryan Helsley actually than you do for Nolan Arenado. But do you think it's like, if they retool and Goldie's gone, do you think it's for sure a given that Nolan Arenado has to leave, or do you think there's a chance he stays? And then regardless of if you think there's a chance he stays, do you think they keep him or not? Sandy, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's a given that he's gone, because let's think about the fact that Nolan Arenado, he's getting paid a lot of money, and it'd probably be nice for the Cardinals to trade him if they're trying to actually retool, but who's going to play third base? Jordan Walker's not a third baseman anymore. He's terrible at third right now. He's actually like pretty good in the outfield. Nolan Gorman's not a third baseman. He doesn't have the arm to play third base right now. So I don't really know what the Cardinals do at third. If they trade Arenado, maybe Donovan or something. Matt Carpenter's still on the roster. I hear he plays a mean third base.
Oh no.
But so if you trade Arenado, first off, I just don't know what the plan is there. And then secondly, yes, Arenado has a big salary. We're talking, $35 million a year, but they'd ship out a ton of other cash. They'd ship out cash in Goldschmidt, which is mid-20s. They'd ship out the Gibson and Lynn contracts, which add up to like 22, 23. So that's already $40 million right there. Depending on who they move on from on the margins, the Cardinals could put, $50 million off their roster. That's a lot of money. And so I don't think they'll be at a point where they're like, wow, we have to get out from under this contract. They're not going to be desperate. Like they'll have the budget to have Arenado. And he's playing good enough defense again this year that even though the bat, which has been pretty good, like Arenado has been the second best hitter on our team.
Yeah.
And now he's the best hitter on our team because Contreras is gone. So, but even though he's not like an MVP candidate with the bat, hey, he's at least playing good defense again. He's at least valuable.
Yeah.
So,
here's a couple of things that make him tradable or keepable contract wise too. So again, if they're moving off all the salary, like Goldschmidt, those other guys, they're probably not bringing on big significant salaries this offseason. They're way closer to $100 million as a payroll after that than they are the 175, 180 they're at right now, 200. It just depends what numbers you're using. So they don't have to get rid of Nolan Arenado to save money. But so there's something that we keep forgetting, or we don't talk about enough, is the Rockies are paying down his salary still. So this year he's set to make 35, but he actually makes 30 because they get $5 million from the Rockies. Next year he's at 32 million. So it was a front loaded deal. It's actually going down every year after this. 2025 Arenado's due 32 million, but the Cardinals get 5 million from the Rockies, so it's actually 27 million. 2026 is 27 million, but it's actually 22 million because of the 5 million from the Rockies. And then in his final year, it's only 15 million. So like, it's actually like, if it was 35 each of the next coming years, that's a harder sell to me to another team, or even for me to keep him. But like the Dodgers, I don't think they look at that deal. It's not a good deal. So you're not getting a lot for him, and you'd have to probably pay it down a little bit to get better prospects for him, but you don't have to eat the whole deal to get good stuff out of it. Like I think you could pretty much move him off for some middling prospects, kind of like what the Rockies did, but not pay money, or you pay a little bit more money to get him down to a really low number for him, and then you get some decent prospects out of it.
But like, can I come from the Dodgers perspective a little bit?
Yeah.
It's like, if you're the Dodgers, who do you displace with Nolan Arenado coming in? Like Max Muncy has been really, really good this year at third base. And sure, he's not playing against lefties right now, but he's been really good. He hit that home run off John King, which, okay, well, that was sad. But
yeah, that's a little different.
Like, you could move Muncy to second base and then Arenado at third. And then you displace Gavin Lux, who hasn't been having a great season so far. But Mookie Betts at shortstop, I feel like, is a temporary solution for them. He should be like back at second base, and he would be and the Dodgers should honestly target like a shortstop this deadline. Like, if the Brewers fall off, Adames is a guy that they could go after, but like, I just don't see a need on that team for Arenado, and I feel like that's kind of the only team he would really want to go to right now. So I think he stays, honestly. Like, I don't think there's like, the Dodgers wouldn't offer like a great deal for him. And again, you can't displace Max Muncy to like DH because they have a guy for that. But like, I don't know what they could give you. I don't know where he would play on that team. So I feel like he's already forced his way out of one team. He's forced his way out of the Rockies. If he wants to force his way out of the Cardinals, that's fine. But I can't find a real spot for him to play because he's expressed interest to play for the Dodgers, but I don't know if the Dodgers would want to have him right now.
Well, last deadline they pushed hard for him, so like I know it's a little bit different now.
They didn't have Ohtani, who was taking up 162 days.
Yeah, that's true. But I do think like if Max Muncy's not playing against lefties, and they could get creative where like maybe Max Muncy plays at second base again. Again, that's not like the best defensive alignment ever, but again, like you're getting Nolan Arenado at third base defensively, right. So that might be worth the upgrade for them. And then Muncy's contract's really affordable too. It's $12 million next year, then a club option the year after too. So it's not like the money's that crazy. Gavin Lux hasn't been playing well, and also you could still move like you could move Mookie. Like Mookie Betts can move all around. So I don't think
Lux
they'd be
so
open
much
to
value
it
too in a trade. Still, I think.
Like you have Teoscar Hernandez in the outfield. Outman is probably gonna. He's been hitting the ball in Pages. It's like I don't know. Like this.
Is it Pages or Pages?
Pages. It's like Pedro Pages. Yeah.
Yeah, Andy Pages is so good.
It's so like they've got. I mean,
like it's great. But like it's the freaking Dodgers. They like when have they stopped from adding to their riches? I think that it makes a lot of sense. He could go somewhere else. I just don't know where else he'd be open to going. And it also, they don't have to, like, that's the other part of this too, is I think it probably is more likely he's moved in the off season than it is at the deadline. Maybe he does get moved at the deadline, but if it doesn't work at the deadline, they have all off season to figure out how to facilitate a trade. And it's a lot easier for the Dodgers to figure out, okay, we're going to bring Nolan Arenado. How do we fit him into the roster when there's free agency and all these trades happening? So if it doesn't happen at the deadline, I think the offseason makes a lot of sense too. I think personally they would end up moving him because I don't think it makes a ton of sense for either side to continue the relationship. And I don't think it's in a situation of, Nolan Arenado just asked out of his second straight team. I think it'd be, hey, like both sides agreed this is what's best for both of us, which is different than Nolan Arenado being like, I demand a trade. I'm not playing for the Cardinals anymore. I think
I think would be a great fit for LA is Tommy Edman.
Who? Yeah. Honestly, yes, he'd be perfect.
That team struggles, they struggle so much against lefties, and he would be a great defensive shortstop. Outman's fine in center field, but I think Edman could fill in kind of anywhere really. Like their weakest positions are, I think, center field, shortstop, and second base right now, defensively at least. Or just like those positions, like they are the ones that they can fill, right? Max Muncy's not going anywhere. Mookie Betts can play wherever you want. Freddie Freeman's not going anywhere. Will Smith's not going anywhere. Ohtani's taking up the DH spot. Teoscar Hernandez isn't going anywhere. So I think Tommy Edman would be a great fit for the Dodgers, like as a bench, Swiss Army knife kind of player. So if he's healthy and you want to move him to LA, where he can probably find a much stabler role, go for it. I think the Dodgers also have they're willing to give up prospects. They gave up Michael Busch for nothing to the Cubs. Like you can get, maybe you can swing a trade for one of their guys who hasn't really found an opportunity to play yet, or hasn't immediately, because that team, they have every single position right now is someone who has the potential or is already a superstar. So there's going to be guys that they're going to have to move on from, and you could hit big on somebody.
Yeah. So we'll assuming this is the path, that's what's going to happen here soon. I think we can talk more and more about what this all looks like. Is there any other names you guys would throw in there? I do think the Tommy Edman one's interesting. Sandy, I know you're kind of asking that, what kind of value does he have right now? So he's gonna,
and we don't even know. Yeah. Still no timetable. I don't know. I guess maybe I don't think Dylan Carlson has a ton of value left, but you'd probably trade him. He might have something.
Yeah. You can hold on to him too, though. I think Edman and Carlson, even Helsley are guys you don't have to move. So you move them if you get the right package, but if you don't, you hold on to them.
I wonder what Chaim Bloom could do with Alek Manoah. I know we've talked about this a couple of times, but Alek Manoah has looked so bad.
I don't know what happened to that guy, dude.
He has good stuff, right? But what if Chaim Bloom could just fix that guy? That'd be great.
Be awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't have to be Alek Manoah. It could be these under the radar guys to keep going. And then you've got the unarms coming up. And again, you're going to get stuff for Kittredge. You're going to get stuff for Gibson and Lynn, something for Goldie. You get stuff for Helsley, you get stuff for Arenado. The hardest part about this exercise is we have no idea. We have no framework to say what kind of prospects they bring in. So like when we get to this next part, we talk about what the future looks like. We're only gonna be able to talk about the names they have now, but then we also have to bake in the fact they're probably gonna add like 12 to 15 prospects in the process too, and whatever this draft brings out, and next year's draft because they'll have a high pick again. So there's a lot of talent that you're going to look at the rotation, potential rotation, be like, where are the arms? And you can't just rely on Tinkens to Roby, but it's like they might acquire another Takao Roby type, or they might acquire, honestly, again, if they trade Helsley, they might get a prospect that they might get their best prospect in the entire system from in that kind of trade. So there's a lot of other pieces we could talk about here, but do we want to put together like any mock lineups or stuff like that for like what this team could look like in 2025 if they sell and if it's like clearing house? Jack Caglione.
If they pass on him,
he would not be there in 2025.
I know, but if they pass on him, I would be really, really upset.
I don't know, man. There's a lot of prospect people who are like, there's a lot of holes there, so I don't know if I'm gonna.
Yeah,
it's high risk, high reward.
The upside is so good.
Yeah, but the downside is he's bad.
Yeah, I want the Cardinals to take a high floor college arm, please. Except a college arm with a high ceiling too. So we're not talking about Zach Thompson and Michael McGreevy anymore.
Yeah,
so like Hagen Smith or Chase Burns.
Yes, Chase Burns would be amazing. Yeah. Or even like Weatherholt would be really, really cool if you're not going to do that.
Chase Burns hit. No, he cannot.
Yeah, but what if Jack Caglione can't hit or pitch at the big league level?
Yeah,
his fastball is 90, upper 90s, 99.
Yeah, like I don't know. I haven't seen anyone say they think there's not really many people planting the flag that he's a legit two-way guy. It's probably he's a power slugger, and then he's first base, maybe outfield, and his holes in his swing.
It's scary.
It's scary, but it could be awesome.
I don't care if he's playing in the Dominican Winter League. I will be at his first start if we got him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, seriously, draft though, we'll talk more as stuff gets closer. But like best player available, I just have to go best player available.
Yeah.
We're in number 7. You get the best talent. Don't reach. Unless you're trying to do some slot stuff, but even then, they don't pick this high much. So go get whoever it is, whether it's JJ, whether it's
get a top end prospect.
Yeah, get the best guy available. I'd love Chase Burns. I'd love Hagen Smith. I'd love a pitcher. But again, actually, one of the weak, you could argue the weaker part of the actual farm system right now is probably the bats now.
Yes.
Like name the good bats to me, because most of the bats we name are not prospects anymore. Like we go to Wubin Chow, we go to Sajc, but like that's
Chase Davis.
Yeah, Chase Davis. So it's like Chase Davis and JC are like the two actual guys right now. Everyone's just guys we like that could be interesting. Getting like
if you got a pitcher and a hitter in the first, like
stop. No. I wish I could put you in timeout in this.
I mean, I'm excited. I want a guy like that. It's not possible. It's not going to happen, but it would be fun.
It would be fun. So again, if you're just joining now, it's been a great turnout so far. So please subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. We've had a lot of growth lately, so it's been really fun. And we just appreciate you tuning in and listening. So if you like more of this content, let us know. Like the stream as well. We're not finishing up necessarily yet, but again, we just want to remind you as you're in this too. And also we do have a membership program. So if you go to the browser version of this, if you're watching YouTube right now, and click subscribe, then there'll also be a join. And just for $1 a month, you can join our Discord, which we have really fun conversations like this in the Discord. So we highly encourage that as well. Yeah, talking young talent wise. So I'll give my big concern, but then I'm mostly optimistic about it, is you look at the young talent they would have outside of what they acquire in draft. So that's where this is hard. They're going to add more to it. But you look at the current young talent they have. Outside of Jordan Walker, I don't really know who has the potential to be a legit star. Like, I think everyone else is like a all-star-ish player at best. Like, Lars Nootbaar isn't a star, like a top 15, 20 player in baseball, probably. Nolan Gorman's not that. Brendan Donovan's not that. Maybe Mason Wynn, but I think that's probably not it either. I think that's part of the difficulty this year. You have a lot of potentially really good players and one that could be a true star at the plate. You don't have you're not like the Orioles with Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holiday, and Adley Rutschman. Like you're really putting your chips in the Jordan Walker basket. And again, that could change with a top 10 pick this year and a top 10 pick next year, where you get 2 more bats to this equation or a legit arm to the equation. But that's the other side of it too. You look at the pitching, it's encouraging, but Tink Hence is probably not a number 1, like a true number 1. Takao Roby isn't that. Quinn Matthews isn't that. So I do think the one thing that gives me a little bit of caution and pause is that you don't have an Albert Pujols right now. You don't have, no one really does. That's a bad example.
Albert Pujols, yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have Adley Rutschman, you don't have Gunnar Henderson, you don't have Julio Rodriguez, you don't have one of those legit stars to build around. Jordan Walker could be that. I really love Jordan Walker. But I think that's the one concern I have when I look at this lineup is it's like, are these guys really
star? How sad.
No, we're not. We don't have any exports. Okay. We don't have a guy who played in.
Hey, Roki Sasaki can go to any team he wants.
That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
Going to the Dodgers.
Yeah, probably not St. Louis, but we'll see. But like, yeah, I mean, Andrew, you sent a mock lineup earlier. Do you want to read that out? Because I think it's when you look at it, it's like this could be really interesting.
Yeah, you have Herrera, Contreras catching tandem. First base is Alec Burleson or Thomas JC. Second base Nolan Gorman. Shortstop Mason Wynn. Donovan at third base is who I have right now if we trade Arenado, but like I don't know. Lars Nootbaar, Victor Scott, Jordan Walker in the outfield, and that's really promising, right? Like Wilson Contreras, if you have him next year and he's playing, I don't know. I'm really scared about this injury because it's his catching arm, so I have him DHing a lot now. But
Still
like he's also getting up there in age. We could see like regression from him as well. But if he plays up to what he has been so far this year, that's another legit bat. If Jordan Walker develops, that's a legit bat. Lars Nootbaar could be really good. If he just elevates the ball a little bit, he'll be one of the best hitters in all of baseball. So I actually kind of disagree. I think Lars Nootbaar does have that upside because he just has all the peripherals down. He just needs to elevate a little bit, and then he'll be really good. Nolan Gorman.
So many line drives.
Yeah. Nolan Gorman has the potential to be really good. We saw that last year. If you can just cut out the streakiness, which seems impossible right now, he can be really good. Mason Wynn, I think will continue to develop offensively. Brendan Donovan has been really good. Victor Scott, we'll see, right?
Yeah, just to clarify, I wasn't saying that they're not going to be really good. I'm just saying you only have one guy where you think has the. I mean, okay, you can maybe argue Lars Nootbaar and maybe argue Mason Wynn, but I do think a little bit of that is our Cardinals classes on a little bit because it's like a lot of guys hit the great peripherals, but you got to put it together.
I mean, Lars Nootbaar's hard hit rate is below only Juan Soto.
I know, so I'm saying there's a lot of encouraging stuff with it, but at the same time, like some guys just don't figure that out. Right. So like he could, and yes. So then I'm just saying like. When you look at like outside perspective, Jordan Walker, you put in that category, and then there's guys that could move up into that category, but it's in the less likely outcomes for them. Jordan Walker, it's like, okay, like this is who we need you to become. But yeah, Brendan Donovan's one of the best leadoff hitters in all of baseball. Nolan Gorman, when he's on, is amazing, but he's off a lot too, which makes he's more Kyle Schwarber than he is Juan Soto, right? Like he's not going to be one of the top left-handed bats in the world, like S tier superstar, but he could be a really impactful bat. Lars Nootbaar could be awesome, and he is awesome, but he could be like a superstar-ish type player, or he could just be a star. Anyways, I agree. There's a lot of young talent. I'm just saying that it's a little bit worrisome that you don't have a clear star to build around right now because all those guys are kind of in the same tier. They're all like, we think they could be that, but they've only done it for small stretches.
Yeah.
But like, I'm excited about it. So I just want to preface with the front end of here's my concern is that you don't have a legit star to build around. You don't have.
I just cursed Brendan Donovan with my bold predictions. I've cursed every bold prediction that I've like. It's so
not making them.
We're not doing this episode next year. I just won't come.
Maybe I'll do it without you and Josh.
No, you guys like you're the only two bold predictions we've gotten right are Miles Michaelis gets extended and Ollie Marmol gets extended. Neither of those are good bold predictions.
Hey, but I was right. Okay.
Yeah, I was right too.
Andy, do you wish you were wrong?
As someone who now has one correct bold prediction, talking to someone who has none, no.
No, I wish you were wrong.
You would rather.
I wish you were wrong too, Josh.
Michaelis.
I would. Okay, hey,
you would rather. Oh, I will make bold predictions for the Cubs. Shota Imanaga is going to win the Cy Young Award this year, and if he does, I'll buy a jersey.
Let's talk more about the young core in just a second, but we didn't talk about this, and I think it's important. Do you like two more trade guys real quick that we didn't talk about? Do you trade the potential NL Cy Young Award winner in Sonny Gray and get an absolute haul?
No.
I think that has to be on the. I think you have to explore it. It has to be on the table.
Yeah.
I think there's an argument that he could be the shepherd for the young staff. He pours into Tink Hence, Takeo Roby, Quinn Matthews, these guys, and he helps you win in 2025 potentially, but more likely 2026 when you're rebounding. But his contract does go up, so it's $25 million next year, $35 million the year after, and he is 34. He's awesome this year, but I mean, again, when you're in a rebuild, retool, you got to maximize value, stuff like that. I think you can explore it. And then Wilson Contreras, it'll be hard to do this deadline because he'll be coming back from injury. But again, with his bat being that good, you could get a ton in return potentially. So it's interesting.
If you're getting if you're getting like 2 top 100 prospects for Gray, I'd maybe
Oh,
consider it.
no doubt you get that, in my opinion.
Maybe like 2 or 3. Like Gray's been amazing this year. This is the first time the Cardinals have had a true ace in so long.
Yeah.
And it's like not just an ace like 2019 Jack Flaherty was really special. But like I don't know. This is the best I've felt about a single Cardinal starter since like prime Wainwright. And letting him go would really suck. Like he's better right now than Carlos Martinez was for the Cardinals. And Carlos Martinez was like a true like 1A, 1B type guy. Like he was amazing.
Yeah.
You know, maybe not like a top 5 pitcher in the league, but Martinez, you could have said he'll win a Cy Young award someday and people would have agreed. So it's just really tough. I would hate to see the Cardinals move on from him. It just would make me really sad. And I don't know. I don't want to see Gray traded. But if you're getting multiple top 100 prospects for him, if you're getting multiple top 100 prospects for Helsley, and if you're getting multiple top 100 prospects for why am I blanking right now? Who else did we just say? Contreras. Yeah, I mean, because I wouldn't trade any of those guys without like 2 banger can't miss prospects.
Yeah, you got to get a lot.
But if you do that, you have the best farm system in baseball.
Yeah, think about that for a second, because I'm trying to think in my head, like a bat that's been as good as Contreras has been, that's been moved. It's like once. I mean, again, it's different because they control, especially a catcher. Yeah, and he's improved defensively too. So he's not just an offensive catcher; he's a really good defensive catcher too. Like I'm trying to think of the equivalent of bats that have been moved like that recently, and it's really not there. Like it's a Juan Soto, but like again, that's a different category. They're not getting that. And then
pitcher, they don't even have a Juan Soto, so like.
But Stan had the big contract and Contreras.
Yeah. I'm saying at the trade deadline.
Yeah,
who had they who's a big bat like that's been traded? I can't think of one that level.
Like Trey Turner.
Like Trey Turner. But then also like is Max Scherzer like the last time a legit ace has been traded at the deadline? Like I know like ace type pitchers like last year Scherzer and Verlander, but they weren't themselves. When was the last time a true and like a guy who's maybe going to win the Cy Young that year is getting traded at the deadline?
Yeah,
that's going to get you something insane in return if he's still pitching like that. I'm not saying you should for sure sell that. You shouldn't do something like that, or you shouldn't like just guaranteed do that. There's reasons to keep him. But I think you gotta explore the idea of trading Sonny Gray when he's 34, 35 right now. If you're taking a step back. So again, this is different if they were like, hey, we're 2025 we're gonna win.
Drop money on a jersey. He'd be sad.
Hey, I would still drop money in a Sonny Gray jersey, even if he was a 6-month Cardinal. So
I have a Sonny
He's
Gray
a classic,
and I will be so upset if he is gone because
it would be like, hey, remember that half season when we had a Cy Young and then we had to trade him because we sucked? That would be the memory.
What if we traded him to the AL so then he can't win the Cy Young?
Oh, brutal.
Unless he just wins the AL Cy Young because he's so good in the second half.
It's true.
Doesn't allow a single run.
I think that the part of the again, and also like if you trade Sonny Gray, again, like what do you realistically expect him to be in 2025 and 2026? Probably not this good, right? Like
why didn't he be this good now?
Yeah, true. So I think then you start to see potential regression of like he's a number 2 type starter or something like that, and you maximize that value now. And then Contreras is the one that I think would be hard sell. Like I don't really know if they could actually pull that off. But if you get rid of Helsley and Sonny Gray, you're really revamping this farm system pretty quick.
Farm system's already good though. That's like the thing.
Well, you can get Sonny Gray on the market next year. You can get Corbin Burns, right? You can go out and sign a guy like that. Like Sonny Gray is replaceable. He's not like he's great, but he's not like the best starter in the world. Like there are guys available this year who are better than Sonny Gray. There will be guys next year that are better than Sonny Gray. It's not like, and you're paying him quite a bit, so you could go out and sign another guy like him if you really wanted to.
Well, tell me this. If the Cardinals move on from Sonny Gray, they're going from 1 frontline starter to 0.
Right.
Like what we all hammered home this offseason was they need 2. I just feel like moving backwards is the wrong direction.
Well, if you're not planning to contend next year,
that's part of this. Is you're moving backwards to get better. That's part of a retool. So like again, if we're talking about 2025, them trying to be a legit contender, yes, that's a problem. But if you're taking a little bit of a step back, you have to do stuff like that to get better.
Yeah.
Also, I agree that the farm system is better than people give it credit for, but most like, and again, also like farm system rankings are rankings, like it's whatever. But like they're pretty. Most places have them ranked as like the 23rd or 24th best system in baseball right now. So it's like there's a lot of interesting talent, but there's not a lot of star level talent there. And there's guys who could be that, but I do think the farm system needs a jolt if you're going to be retooling.
Yeah.
So,
well,
we'll see.
I want to ask is, like, with this team, what is the strength in 2026 if you wait and then contend then? Like, is it the young lineup?
Yeah, it probably would be.
Because that's the strength now, and they suck. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing is, like, if you retool, we're wasting a year of this young talent on offense that's supposed to be really good.
But it's not good right now, so you're not wasting it.
I know, but it's like we are, because the clock has started, and these are the guys that are supposed to win games for us in 2026. I don't see how it's going to be like super different now and then. It's the same players.
Well, because you're bringing in, like, if you are trading Sonny Gray, if you are trading Randy Helsley, like, we just can't name those players right now, but you're bringing in the Colton Cowser, right? You're bringing in the guy who's like Nars Newbar, but better. Like, you're bringing in these other names, and you're bringing in the number 7 overall pick. You are bringing a top 5 pick next year. Like, so I think that's
how much that's going to be ready by 2026.
So yeah, I mean, some of those guys might not be ready, but there could be trade chips too. Like, you don't have to just develop all your talent. And then again, you have Jordan Walker, who's in year 3 of his career, rather than trying to figure things out. Like, you might have a Jordan Walker who's actually able to replicate what Paul Goldschmidt's production used to be in the middle of your lineup. So it's different than Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt getting older, where you're worried about decline. You're worried about, like, money, but then also you're not paying anyone anymore. So you can re-sign those guys, and those are the guys you're paying a little bit.
Will the Cardinals actually extend them though? Like that, this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried about the clock starts on this young lineup last year and the year before for some of them. Okay, we're already in it. Like, Brendan Donovan's already in year 3. And 2026, we're talking about, like, he's about to leave. You know, we're already talking about being at the end of this young lineup that we've been projecting out and saying the Cardinals have 5 years of this offensive talent. And if we throw away this year, we throw away next year, and we hope for 2026, we're already mailing in, you know, half of that time. It just worries me. And I think that no matter who you bring in, you're still going to be relying on Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, Brendan Donovan, and Jordan Walker in 2026. Like, there's still going to be linchpins in this lineup. You still need them to be good.
Yeah.
So I just feel like you have the same systemic problem as you have this year, because this year, as like, the pitching's fine. The bullpen's amazing. Sonny Gray is a true ace. He can win a Cy Young Award if he pitches like this. And then the lineup is so bad, we don't even know what to do. So I just kind of worry. I don't know. Like, it's the same building blocks that have to put together that team. And if they don't work now, and some of them are in year 3, like, do they work in year 5? What's to say that it changes?
Well, I would say one thing to say that changes is they're right now, they're not even just playing below what we projected them to be this year. They're playing below their career norms.
They're awful.
And so, man, I'm trying to find their career stats right now. But, like, all these guys, like Brendan Donovan has shown he can be I have to look at it. Jordan Walker has been a 15% above league average his first year. Brendan Donovan has put together a full season of close to 30% above league average, and he would have been that again last year if he didn't get hurt.
Correct.
Nootbaar's done that twice already. Like, these guys have shown they can be really good hitters already. Again, really the big thing is just health for them. And then this year's the one year where they've been bad. Yeah, so I mean,
so does this year turn around then? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's just like, is it a lost season for everybody? I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. It makes no sense how they
that's the problem is it doesn't make sense. But I also think there's a part you look at it too where it's like, hey, there's a lot of outside noise right now. They're trying to get it back on track. They're trying to become a winner. Every single game they lose is more and more pressure. When you retool, rebuild, like, all the pressure's off. And I mean, not all of it, but, like, it's a different climate too. So I can see them kind of getting it back on track and being
look at the Brewers.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's also the other standpoint, though. If your, like, lineup is so deep, which is kind of what I thought this was going to be. It's like the Dodgers, right? Andy Pajes can come up, and he doesn't care because that team is going to win the division by 20 games, right? That's just how it is. They've won 13 of 15. He doesn't care. Like, everything that he produces is extra, and he's producing well because the spotlight is on Ohtani and Betts and Freeman. But here, like, if your stars aren't producing, if Goldie and Arenado aren't hitting up to their standards, then the pressure's on Nolan Gorman and Lars Nootbaar and Jordan Walker to produce. And that's not necessarily fair to them because you brought in Goldschmidt and Arenado, and, like, Goldschmidt, age regression, whatever. Like, even at his age, Albert Pujols on the Angels was a plus hitter. He had like a 115 OPS plus. Goldschmidt is, like, just completely unplayable at this point. And like, if those guys could have stepped it up, then there would be less pressure on Nolan Gorman to perform. There'd be less pressure on Lars Nootbaar. And it's just at this point, right? Like, part of the reason I think Arenado won't want out of St. Louis is because it's kind of his fault that this team is struggling, right? It's on him. He's making the money. He is the reason that this team needs to be performing, and he just hasn't. So I don't know. It's really frustrating. But so you either have to be really good and like your veteran bats have to pick you up, or you have to retool. And I don't really think there's any in between, because if you're caught in between, you're like the Angels, you're like the Blue Jays, you're like those teams that are kind of just hanging in there, and that's not a recipe for success. Like, even the teams that sneak into the playoffs, like the Diamondbacks, and make a run, or the Phillies, and Sandy's looking at something on his screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out something with Goldie's stats.
Like the teams that sneak into the playoffs all have the upside, right? The Cardinals can sneak into the playoffs, and they're probably going to lose in the first round because they don't have that pitching upside. They don't have that lineup upside that we've seen right now, because those guys just aren't producing, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. I think, again, that's the core of the issue right now, is it's Goldie and Arenado aren't producing, and then it reflects on everyone else. So if you're in a retool, rebuild situation, yeah, the pressure's on Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman and Lars Nootbaar to be the middle of the order bats, but you're also, the expectations aren't, hey, we're trying to save the entire organization from entire rebuild and retool because we're just coming off the worst season in franchise history and we're supposed to be good and everyone's mad and everyone's upset, to, hey, we're a young team, we're trying to figure things out, this is exciting. You can, like, it's like Lane Thomas on the Nationals. When he's failing, they can keep playing him because it doesn't matter if they win every
Jolis
game.
Garcia.
Yeah, right now they have to demote Jordan Walker because they can't afford for him to be making mistakes at the big league level. Well, actually, they probably could, because like, who else is producing? But like, in their head, they're like, hey, we need a guy who's actually going to give us good at bats right now. You need to go develop in AAA. When instead you can have them figure it out against big league pitching, because the wins and losses don't matter as much. So, but like when you're a Dodgers and your big bats are producing, then Pages can come up with no pressure on him, because Ohtani and Betts and Freeman are going to produce, but Arenado and Goldschmidt haven't, and that it sucks. So,
Yeah,
but
only,
go ahead. Yeah, you do bring a good point, Sandy. That's like, hey, these are the guys they're already relying on. But again, they'll be getting older, more developed. Again, not all progression and development is linear, but you would think they'd be better. And then who knows? Maybe you do have some really exciting young talent that you've added via trade, via the draft. Again, the draft probably not in 2025, 2026 helping you out, but they could be trade chips, or some of them are a little bit quicker to come up now. And then who knows, maybe you get a guy from X organization like Baltimore, whoever, that next year is a part of that. And then they're the young bats, right? Like now Jordan Walker and Lars Nootbaar and Nolan Gorman are kind of like the, hey, you're the more veteran-ish, you're the guys who are supposed to produce. But then you have Colton Cowser, who, like, I'm just throwing out like a guy like that. That's like, hey, like, you're the young bat who's coming up, in 3 years from now, you'll be at hitting arbitration. And like, it'll refluctuate a little bit. And then you'll have finally too, pitchers in the rotation, hopefully, that you're not like, you're paying $800,000 a year rather than $15 million a year to get the same production. So you can move money toward re-signing re-signing Walker, Nootbaar, those guys, or going out in free agency and bringing in that big bat that you need. Like, they can actually do some of that stuff. So it's just hard to visualize right now.
There is a quota, though, that the DeWitts have set for themselves, because every opening day they've said they've had a Hall of Famer in uniform since X year. I want to know who that is next year. Is it Max Scherzer?
Could be Yadier Molina.
Oh, no.
If Yadi's the manager, does that count?
It counts. I think La Russa was the Hall of Famer in uniform for a certain point. Yeah, I don't know.
It could count. We'll see.
He is in uniform.
That's true. That's true. Well, again, thanks for joining us today. If you've been watching and you're new to this, we'd love if you subscribe and like. It helps the channel out a ton. And we'll be obviously producing more Cardinals content. We usually have 2 episodes out a week. Also, note news, the St. Louis Blues podcast is launching tomorrow. So definitely go check that out. You can subscribe on YouTube and other platforms as well, Twitter, all that stuff. They put together a really good first episode. You guys are really going to enjoy that if you're a Blues fan. Again, if you've been joining us for Cardinals content, like, subscribe. Please let us know in the comments what you thought of this episode and things you want us to be talking about. What's crazy right now is I have no idea we're going to be talking about Sunday, because everything changes so quickly at this team right now that we could be talking even more tear down, or who knows, maybe they are going for a series 4-game sweep over the Brewers. Probably not, but who knows? Maybe they are. We're like, are they back?
low, and the lows are so low too.
Yeah. So we'll see. We'll always be here though. We're consistent with it. We're excited to bring you Cardinals content, even when they're not as exciting. Thanks for your commitment to this podcast and everything with it as well. We appreciate all the support. Like and subscribe, share with your friends. We'll see you next time.